Hey, thanks for listening to our podcast. If you want to listen live in the central Indiana area, you can hear us on 93.5 FM and 107.5 FM.
From playing in a phone booth, becoming a Morse Reservoir All-Star, and earning status as an ambient player, it's time for the best of Coach Rick Venturi with a breakdown of yesterday's game. Brought to you by the District Tap. Craft beer on tap and damn good food. North at 82nd Street, just east of Keystone at the Crossing. And now downtown at Georgia Street and Meridian.
Hey, Rick Venturi on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. So all the stuff that we so loudly complained about last week, all of a sudden, running game, offensive line, kicking game, it happened in a positive yesterday. So well done.
Yeah, very well done. I mean, obviously every game at this stage in the season is humongous. It almost takes on a playoff atmosphere. That was huge. First of all, I think it was really important, John, after the last 2 weeks, and particularly that clunker last week, to regain confidence for the entire franchise. Because I know no matter what people say and what face they put on it, when you go through a bad patch like that, there is a confidence lag, and the only way you get it back is with performance. So, I thought that was really good. Obviously, staying undefeated in the South. And, more importantly, now you're totally back in control of your destiny. You don't have to have anything happen. All you have to do is go out and do your job this Thursday night. And this will be a championship-type atmosphere regardless. I mean, two teams are coming into it with very different outcomes from Sunday. I don't know who that helps or doesn't help, but, they're two different outcomes. But obviously this is for the lead in the South and for big-time ramifications down the line. I thought that, in regards to the game, after a real tough first half, I mean, that thing was 10-7. Offensively, we had a bad two series at the end of the first half. We got sacks, quarterback hits. And then we came out in the second half and really dominated both sides of the ball and really won the second half 23-0. So obviously that's what we needed. It was just a doctor's order. And speaking of doctors, I think the entire fan base, myself included, I think I got a reprieve yesterday, so we weren't in a nail biter like we've been for the last 2.5 months, the last 9 games within one possession. It was kind of nice to just kind of have relaxed a little bit in that fourth quarter and knew that you have it. So, now you go to Houston in a playoff type atmosphere, and we'll just have to see. You're going for 4 straight on this team now. Offensively, I thought we did a really good job of reestablishing a physical identity. Yesterday was a physical, dominating game, I think, on both sides of the ball by the Colts. Offensively, definitely dominated. We historically had 2 guys over 100 yards, Marlon with 109 and Jonathan with 116. Mac, unfortunately, I don't know what the issue, how long that's going to be. He's up to 866 yards here just beyond the midpoint. And I had to laugh. The first note I put down is, because we talked about this all last week, I said the best way to overcome our liabilities, which still are, if you watch part of the games, is we have protection issues and we have separation issues. So I said, I guess the best way to eliminate that is just don't pass it at all and run the hell out of it. You ran it 36 times. Albeit against an awful run defense. But we said that Sunday morning. We said this team can rush the passer, but they can't stop the run. Well, they couldn't stop it, at a historic rate at 264 yards. So, they were, and I said it all along, if the biggest key to the game from an offensive standpoint would be to always be on top, always be ahead in the chains, very seldom let the Daytona Speedway package get in there and make an effect. And we did that in the second half. Now, in the first half, I mean, they had 3 sacks. They had nine total hits, counting the sacks on the quarterback after over 27 attempts. So I mean it still wasn't perfect, but in the end, the 36 runs with great success. time of possession and 33 points. That's awfully good. I think our offensive line, definitely kind of reestablished themselves. I thought they did control the line of scrimmage. Now, this is a bad defense run-wise. I mean, they're unsound, they're not talented, and they're not very good technically on the run. But we out-toughed them. I thought we pushed them. We got up to the second level. We turned them. We stick and stayed with them. And we created daylight. I mean, the offensive line definitely created daylight all day. And I'm going to tell you what, hats off to the offensive line for what they did. But our running backs played possessed. I mean, that's as good and as hard 3 guys playing running backs as I've seen. I mean, the numbers are there with Mack 109, Williams 116. Hines did a nice job with what he had to do. The red zone touchdown was terrific. But they were tough. They grounded it out. I mean, they twisted and turned, juked, and even my wife said she hadn't seen so many spins in football in about 20 years, and I agree to that. I mean, they just great spin, started with Max, great run down in there. Just, I think, a terrific performance. Vince Lombardi, the gods of football said Vince Lombardi stood up from his grave last night and said they ran to daylight, if you will. And just one shout-out on that because they never get credit. The position coaches are kind of the least known guys in the league, always kind of at ground zero, but yet they are sometimes the most important guys because, they're the teachers, they train, they develop, they motivate, and they get individuals to play. They're in their head all day long. And I will say this, in the last 2 years in this regime, if there is a position coach of the year in the NFL, which they don't do that, but if there was, it would go to Tom Rathmann because it doesn't matter who he has, whether it's Jonathan Williams or Marlon Mack or Wilkins or Hines or whoever, even in preseason, those guys always perform. So
does he have more to do to this, you think, than the coaching up the offensive line?
You know what? I think that's separate entities. I think our offensive line obviously has a lot to do with it. They have to create space if there's no space.
Right.
But what my thing is I never hardly ever see those guys play bad, and it doesn't matter if it's Marlon Mack, who you expect to play good, or Jonathan Williams, they step in and play good. I mean, even the kid that we brought in this summer in the preseason, I can't remember his name. He came in and played extremely well. I thought he might make the team, and I was really happy for Jonathan because doing those summer games like I do, the preseason games, and being at practice every day, I thought Jonathan Williams, Wilkins was out most of the time. I thought he had a great training camp. Everything he was asked to do every day in practice, he did it. So his hard work and hanging in there has really paid off. And I would say another shout-out before on the offense, well, there's 2. One, I thought our tight ends did a really good job. I thought 3 guys. I thought, in terms of the blocking, when you make all these yards, it's a collective. It's line, it's tight ends. Doyle was really good, particularly on the pull part of his game. The guy who did a really good job was Allie Cox. I mean, he blocked better than he has. He was coming on last year, but he blocked that edge tough. He came in on a wham early and just killed somebody. And then Pascal, they actually use Pascal as a puller sometimes. I mean, that guy really is a very, very special blocker. So all those things really helped. I thought Jacoby had a really good Bart Starr-like game. 15 for 24, 148. That's kind of like Lombardi's Packers in 1959. But I thought he was really tough. I thought he really hung in there in that first half when he was getting hit. I mean, if you look at the last 2 series of that first half, we didn't look very good. We got beat off the edge twice. We got 2 blitzes hit us right in the face, and he refused to give that ball up. He hung on. And, then when it was all said and done, he made 2 great red zone plays to get us in, the scramble for 6, leg or not. And, again, the 4th down play was phenomenal. It rates right with that great play he had against Denver to save us. We were dead in the water on that 4th down. I mean, there was no place to go, and they were breathing hard on him. And, again, he always shows a little bit more athleticism than you think. And you couldn't have thrown a better laser that better laser in there to Johnson. That was terrific. So, again, when you have him back, you really have a chance. I've gone from just kind of lukewarm in training camp to, full metal jacket backer of that guy. I mean, he just has really outplayed the expectations, and I think we're sitting in good shape. The one last thing I'll say is the amazing thing, and you got to keep this in mind, and there's some things that I think when we get into a couple negatives that you better be alert for, because you're not going to run for 264 on many of the teams we have left to play. It's just not going to happen. You're not going to see another Jacksonville on run defense. But despite all that great running, the touchdown that got us ahead, that finally got us from 17 to a 2-score game, with all that running, it still took a 3rd and 19 screen pass and then a scramble on 4th and 1 to get it in there. So, as tough as it is, it's just sometimes in the NFL some strange things happen. But, on the offensive side of the ball, and we can get into the defense now when you want to, but on the offensive side of the ball, it was a rebound performance. And, again, I think more than anything else, it reestablished a physicality identity.
It's Rick Venturi on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. I'm going to take a break, and I'm going to come back. And I know normally we kind of leave the next game further down the road, but I want to ask you regarding the offense and how much the run was involved in their run-oriented yesterday. Should that at all change, given there's no J.J. Watt on the other side of the line in this short week versus Houston on the road on Thursday? We'll talk about that offensive philosophy and what you think it should be, Rick, coming up on the other side. The segment, the hour, if you will, that you absolutely have to hear each and every Monday. Education with Rick Venturi on 93.5 and 107.5 FM, The Fan.
From playing in a phone booth, becoming a Morse Reservoir All-Star, and earning status as an ambient player, it's time for the best of Coach Rick Venturi with a breakdown of yesterday's game. Brought to you by the District Tap. Craft beer on tap and damn good food. North at 82nd Street, just east of Keystone at the Crossing. And now downtown at Georgia Street and Meridian.
All right, Rick, I kind of tease going into the break. The offensive philosophy in a short week on the road at Houston without the Texans and J.J. Watt for Jacoby Brissett and company. But I tell you what, on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, Rick returns. Let's give the type of love that's necessary for the defensive effort, because most of the time we have seen recently that defense has been there, and it sure as hell was yesterday.
That defense for the last 5 weeks has really been good. I mean, starting with the Kansas City game when Matt made a very, I think, strong tempo change, let's put it this way, or adaptation or evolution. This team has really played really good football in 5 weeks. I mean, point totals down. Everything has really, really gone down. It was a little bit of a shaky start Sunday to start with. They had a little trouble with Chark. They had some issues with him early. He ran a couple runaway routes, and then he caught that dig. He kind of beat Tell on the top of the route and then ran by Hooker, and, it looked like they were going to do all right. But from that point on, the Colts defense played 50 minutes, right until that last kind of giveaway touchdown, which really, that at that point, that's the Vitalis group there. That's, it was 50 minutes of just absolutely shut them down football. And I thought that Matt did a really good job in that he had a really good mix because he's playing with young corners. He basically still played aggressive man-to-man. I think Tell and Yasin played better. I don't think there's any question. I still think they've got to get better when they face the top guys basically on the line of scrimmage. Their press technique has to get better. They're still not getting that jam, but they are really improving. Then he mixed zone. I thought he didn't do a lot of blitzing, but this is when he's at his best, is when he times the blitz. It's not blitzing every down that gets you. It's that 5 or 6 key blitzes. He's kind of come up with a new wrinkle. I call it a 6-2-3. I haven't seen this very much. It's a 6-man, like a total blitz, but instead of playing man-to-man, they got 2 guys short and 3 guys deep. It's kind of unique, and they've had a lot of success with it. They've gotten their sacks the last few weeks, including Kenny's last week. Obviously the Jaguars, who had good run numbers, but I told you on Sunday I thought they were inflated. And really, they gave up on it. I don't know what Marrone was thinking at the half at 10-7, and he runs the ball 9 times for 29 yards. I mean, it isn't like that he's Eric Coryell. I didn't understand that totally, but in the end, they only got 29 yards rushing. They're a phone booth team. I told you that on Sunday, so I never really worry about that. Chark had a pretty good game, but we got to stopping him as we went on. And series by series, basically we just got better and better. I just thought Kenny Moore, he's just a tremendous football player. The little big man, I think he's our best player on defense, and I know I'll get pushed back on that, but he is the guy that doesn't need the scheme to make him good. He is not scheme-driven. This is his second sack where it wasn't a free sack, where he had to come over somebody. He came right over Armstead. Their third down back came right over him for that critical sack. He made the great play on third down in the bunch, that great tackle. That 3rd and 2 could have been huge. He fought his way through all that pick and was over there, made a great tackle. And then on that critical 4th down, he's back out the corner position. He sunk back, and he made that big tip and knocked the ball down. 3, really game-changing plays within the big picture. He's just a tremendous football player, and like I said, the thing about him is he's not a product of the scheme. The little big man can really, really play. Houston continues to wear the other team out. He had Robinson and Foles hip all day long, got another big sack, a lot of pressure, number 8 for him. So, he's certainly been the guy that we wanted. I also think that Yasin and Tell, as I said earlier here in the discussion, I think they're improving a little bit every week. They still got a ways to go. Yasin got by with one. He held that guy for 10 yards. I mean, they're not going to reverse an interference penalty no matter what. I mean, the officials are making a stand. They're like a protest group right now. They're not going to return any of those. But I think the other thing that's been really impressive to me, because this was the part of the game that I did not see, and it just wasn't there. But I think Hooker has really he's shown the physicality here in the last 3 weeks that was lacking. He had a great breakup early on the post, but then he came up and really blew somebody up on that dig. So, I really, really like that. There's no question about that. And so, I really, again, the defense is playing really, really good. No question about it. We kicked well again to win. I would say the biggest thing, and it should be no problem, this is one advantage, I think, of a short week. I think it plays to our advantage. First of all, you're playing your neighborhood game. I mean, these two teams know one another. They've played about 100 times, I think, in 8 weeks, it seems like. So they know one another. This is not something that, takes some kind of NASA science. You'll be ready for the game. But I think basically what we don't want to do, and we tend to do this, and nobody talks about it, but we tend to do it, is don't admire your work now, because next week, Thursday night's a totally different challenge. The game can unfold totally different, and we're going to talk about what you teased about the running game. But, again, every game unfolds different. Every matchup is different, and that's what's really important. So, you don't have time to admire it. You get right onto the week and get on that plane on Wednesday.
Do you think they're admirers, considering how they played down to the lesser talent and then up to the better talent?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's admire or not, but there has to be something to that, because I said they would play really well Sunday. Remember, I said it on Sunday. I said this team historically, and this even goes before Frank, since I've been here, not the Manning days, but since the 212 days, this team has always played when its back was to the wall, and yet you worry about it when they start to feel good. And I don't know if it's admire is the right word, you can play with an edge, and then you can play with a great edge. Well, Sunday we came out with a great edge. We didn't have a great edge there for 3 weeks. We did not. We started slow in all those games, and we even started a little bit slow Sunday, to tell you the truth. But, it's on to Houston. Obviously, Houston, had a terrible day yesterday, just an absolute terrible day. And I had to spend a lot of time on it because I was a little bit in disbelief. But I'll tell you one thing, that quarterback at Baltimore now, he will give a defensive coordinator a nightmare like you've never had, and I've seen them all.
So, Rick Venturi, quick break, and we'll come back. We'll get to the offensive philosophy, or at least your choice of that, coming up on Thursday. And then the dramatic difference between a defense in Houston with J.J. Watt and now certainly without him. And they've had a variety of corners injured, and most recently they had to bring a dude from a first rounder that was cut by Tampa Bay. We'll get into that and a lot more. Rick Venturi about this short week matchup with the Texans, which is a must-win big game on Thursday. Back with Rick and you. Other side next.
From playing in a phone booth, becoming a Morse Reservoir All-Star, and earning status as an ambient player, it's time for the best of Coach Rick Venturi with a breakdown of yesterday's game. Brought to you by the District Tap. Craft beer on tap and damn good food. North at 82nd Street, just east of Keystone at the Crossing. And now downtown at Georgia Street and Meridian.
An hour of the Rick on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. All right, let's get to the matchup coming up in a short week on Thursday. And there is a scroll of injuries and did not participate in practices today. We'll have to sort all that out. But I want to start here with the other side of the football. Given what took place for the Texans in Baltimore yesterday, how has that defense looked recently without J.J. Watt? Because he was an absolute terror in that first game the Colts won here.
Well, that is a big issue with them, as well as getting their quarterback sacked, which he's part of the problem on that. But as far as the Texan defense, this is not our father's Texans. This isn't even the Texans that we knew a month ago. The Texans were always top 5 defense, no lower than top 10 in everything. At times, possibly, sometimes their pass defense would be below that. But this was in a lot of sacks, with Watt and with Clowney. And then there were the two ambient guys right there that I just mentioned, that you always had to have some kind of game plan, at least situational plan for J.J. Watt. I mean, if J.J. Watt got down on Glowinski, you had to either audible, help, or get your quarterback knocked off. I mean, when you ran at Clowney, there were certain things that you had to do. You got to stop penetration. So, both those guys were ambient guys in that they did force you to game plan around them. Not that it was impossible. But when you look at them now this moment going into Houston, they have awful defensive statistics. I mean, they're 26th total. They're 29th against the pass. They're the 26th sack team in the league. And the only good thing, and this is why I want to temper, and this is why I always put a warning label on a great game that we had against somebody. It may not be the same game plan this week. You can wish it so. But, even though the Texans aren't very talented on defense right now, they've got about 4 decent players, but they're not that talented. But they will play fundamentally better up front. Jacksonville has really lost their way. If they're not rushing the passer, they don't have gap integrity. They don't have physicality up inside, and their numbers show it. They were 24th going in. And doggone it, they look like 34th on Sunday. Well, this is, the Texans, the one thing they do a decent job of is stopping the run. So you got to understand it. And statistics matter when you get to the 10th and 11th week of the season, where they have been just terrible and really terrible against us is against the pass. And you can't forget that. Remember, we gained 62 yards rushing, but we came out throwing, and Jacoby went, he lit it up, maybe the best game of his career with 321. And their secondary is just a mess. I can't tell you really who is going to start this game. I mean, I really can't. They've got a bunch of corners like Conley. Joseph is in and out. Lonnie Johnson didn't practice today, even in the walkthrough. Reed, the safety, looks like he's out. So, I mean, they've got a bunch of guys that are in and out. There isn't a great talent there. Roby hasn't played in a long time. He's really the bell cow. So, I think now when you approach these guys, it is approaching their scheme more than individuals. Now, the four good players that you have to worry about, now they're not ambient players, but they're good players, is Reeder is a force inside. You have to make sure if you're running a power play that you're doubling him. He's number 98. You want to make sure that you double him and get after him. He's a really kind of an under-the-radar interior player, and they're going to load up against us. They did that last week. They loaded up, and they actually dominated. Even though we won the game and we won a lot of things, I think we had 33 minutes of time of possessions, but they dominated the fourth quarter and almost pulled that out. Now, Merciless is a solid player, and he's kind of their weak side linebacker on the edge. They're going to bring him as much as they can. He was a great number 2 to Clowney. I don't think he's a great 1, but if you go to sleep on Merciless, he can run the edge. I think their two best players are their interior linebackers, McKinney, 55, who's been a little bit of a Colt killer over the years, and Cunningham, 41. So, I think they're going to give you that under double sink. They're going to try to, force you to the outside and run it down. That's what I think they'll try to do. But I still think that, you have to have a mix. You have to be ready to run the ball 40 times, but you got to be ready to pass it 40 times. And I think, they're going to give you a better front. Even though it isn't that talented, it'll just be better structured in terms of the run game. But I still think you can pound them off tackle. I think you can run at the edges, both at Merciless and at Scarlett. I think they're decent guys. I've always said that you want to play this team opposite of what they think, or play them wrong. You heard me say this a few weeks ago. Get in your base sets, your two tight end sets, and that's when you want to throw, because they're really predictable. They'll bring 5, and they'll either play 1 or 4. They're very predictable in the back end. And then when you get in nickel and spread them out, then you want to run first and pass second. So it's you kind of want to mix and match that situation. I do think you want to beat them off tackle. I think they'll be solid inside. I think they'll force you to go off tackle into the outside. But I don't think Merciless and Scarlett are man-mountain guys on the run. I think they're better rushers. They have about 9.5 sacks between them. Also, I think you want to take advantage of McKinney. You want to take advantage of good player and what they do. McKinney and Cunningham are going to go to that ball. So you want to give them some misdirect. I thought the Colts did a nice job. They ran a little misdirection. They had a lot of action underneath, but they ran some misdirection zone plays, which freezes the linebackers a little bit. And then I think you want to run the bootlegs and the play actions where you get them going one way and go against the grain. As far as throwing the football, I think because of the secondary issues, you have to probe them. They go one of two ways usually. They will play what we call quarters, which is a matchup underneath, but it's kind of a 4 across the board. Defense has a zone and man element. Or they go heavy man-to-man. Now, that's what Romeo did different after he's been sliced up by our team, and particularly Hilton has sliced him up over the years in that quarters, so he vowed to do something different. So in the last game a month ago, he came up there and pressed everybody and played real hard man-to-man, and, brought the extra guy down in the box. And, of course, Grimes did a good job on Hilton, but he's out. He's gone for the season. And they matched him. I don't know who they would match up against Hilton right now if he were to play, but he didn't even go through the walkthrough again. So, I think you want to probe them. If it becomes a quarters game quickly, then you want to run that strong side. You want to stack up in their short splits, get them to play off. You want to run double posts and scissors between Pascal and Ebron. You want to run that second receiver on a deep out against quarters. All the things that beat quarters, spin post, all the stuff over there. And I think you can take your shots, because when they play quarters, their safeties play really tight, and they really expect them to fit and then get back, and many times they can't get back. Now, I don't think they'll play us that way. I think they'll play us like everybody else is trying to, and that's real hard man-to-man press. Remember, our wide receivers, again, I think caught totally 7 balls, for 66 yards. So, I mean, we're still not a receiver threat. I mean, and just remember, now you're not going to run for 264 every week. And really, our protection and our passing game wasn't really that good Sunday. When we had to throw and we went in that 2-minute drill, go back and look at it, we really struggled on protection. We struggled on the edge, both Smith and Costanzo. We struggled on blitzes. We got hit right in the face. We got hits. We got like 5 hits in 8 plays before the end of the first half, and we had no separation again. So I look for them to do that. Now, they really struggled against us with the rub routes and the pick routes and in real narrow splits, because that got them off real quick. So, you got to be really ready for that. And then, I think, again, you got to make sure you secure the edges. You can't let Merciless beat you off the edge. And then when they do get to third down, they'll give you volume, like everybody else. Now, we did a great job. We just simply kept Jacksonville out of that by never letting them get after the first half. They never really got into a third and long. But when they get in third and long, then they're going to give you a lot of action, and they're going to blitz you. I really do believe that we have shown so many vulnerabilities. We have so many free hitters, it's not even funny. For one reason or another, we have a lot of free hitters on the blitz game, so that's what I expect from them.
Did you see that happening earlier this season? Is this all a part of as of late, for whatever reason, this offensive line not protecting the way that it has?
I don't believe. I saw it in training camp every day. I didn't think that. It was very disappointing. And of course, in training camp, you think, well, maybe we're a little bit behind on that. But I haven't thought that our team blitz pickup has been nearly, not even close to what it was a year ago. It's been so inconsistent. And people see that. I mean, like I said, in my world, that's all we do is study your tape. And, people copy, they come back, and they repeat things. Now, Sunday, it didn't become a big issue because of the 264 yards rushing. But if you take sections out, it's still a problem. And so I do worry about that. And, to answer your question specifically, this was evident in training camp, and it's been on and off most of the year. And that's why I give Jacoby a lot of credit, because he's erased a few of those free hits. He's erased some of those free hits. When they have hit him, he hasn't given it up. He's been tougher than hell. And, whenever they put a good guy down on Glowinski, it's a crapshoot.
So Rick Venturi on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, the hour you have to hear each and every Monday for a breakdown of the Colts game yesterday that went over Jacksonville on the short week in preparation for another big game in Houston coming up on Thursday. So what did you think? This is me. My uneducated opinion was it looked like that even beyond knocking down kicks, that Adam was kicking or hitting the ball a lot better than he had been.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. I mean, I think he had one that looked scary to me. He had one little bit of a hook left, but overall, no, the kicks. And I've never thought it was leg. I mean, I've never, ever thought it was leg in terms of age that way. I just think that more than anything else, it is a confidence issue and a, kind of in the tank mentally on it, a mental block like a rider has a rider block. And, again, he rebounded the last time, and then the next week went back in the tank. So, I mean, I don't think we're out of the woods on that by any matter.
Seems like he's really good. The week after they bring in a group to kick, it seems like he's really good after that week.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's that or that you hit bottom and you got no, it's what's that? Freedom is nothing but nothing less to lose, But that Chris Christopherson's line.
You're gonna get some late '60s on with us right here.
Yeah, right there. Freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. And I think sometimes you hit bottom and then I got nothing to lose, and then all of a sudden you're back in there. So we'll see. But I do agree with you is that he did look like himself. I mean, there's no question about the ball baseball came out of there, and direction was really good.
Hey, you know the segment's going great when Rick can get some me and Bobby McGee reference going on in here. So
I just came off that Kenny Burns. I don't know if you watched it. He has and I'm not. I love all genres. I mean, I can go from old Elvis, rock and roll to new stuff to country, but Ken Burns, who does those great documentaries like on Vietnam and Second World War.
That one's great. Yep.
He did the country music thing. It's about a 7-part, about 14 hours. And I'll tell you what, it's just compelling. So I got a little bit of that on my mind right now with Christopherson.
Yeah. Where are you? I don't know if we've gone over this entirely, but why does it always seem that this team plays down to the competition, up to the competition? Is that because maybe they're not as good as what we think, and they're certainly not as bad as what others believe? Does that make any sense at all?
No, that's a good point. And you know what? That's been hard for me too, hard to me to deal with. And I think sometimes we probably put, because it's natural for me, it's natural for all of us to always put it on emotion. You know, it probably has something to do with. I think we're a very good team. I think we can go a long way. But Sunday was such an exception to get 33 points. It's hard for us to get 33 points. We're not a team that gets a lot of explosive plays. Now, even Sunday, we got all explosive plays in the running game. I mean, we got the 1/3 and 19 on a screen pass. I mean, we don't run by anybody. We don't create big chunks down the field, and therefore you don't score a lot of points. So when you're like that, it really doesn't matter whether you play Lombardi's Packers or Jones Junior High. You're going to be in a tight game. I mean, I really think Sunday was a little bit of an exception because I think that running game, as good as it was Sunday, and we are a good running team, I do think it's an anomaly. I don't think you can count on that week after week in the NFL. And because of that, and because we have liabilities in the passing game now, and it's not our quarterback. We don't have speed until Hilton gets back. We're not explosive on the outside, and we have protection issues. Even Costanzo and Smitty got beat off the edge Sunday. I mean, those two young guys beat us off the edge again. So, I mean, there's some issues there. And when you ask whether we play down, I don't know if we play down. Maybe that's just who we are. And I'm not saying that we aren't a good team, because I think we are. But we're a team that, you know, is more like Lombardi's Packers than it was Air Coryell. You know, he used to beat a lot of people 16-10. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's highly unusual. It's kind of like,
but we got a challenge.
It's like watching the Pacers and how they treat the three-pointer. I mean, it's like
that's right.
a 90s NBA team, and this is like an old school, or at least when it has
kind of old school.
Yeah.
That's what I said. Lombardi raised up and said, "Boy, they ran to daylight." This was, I mean, Jacoby had a good game, and it was Bart Starr-like numbers, not
it hadn't happened since they hadn't had 2 100-yard rushers since Randy McMillan and Albert Bentley back in '85.
I know.
So, yeah.
I mean, that's amazing. Now, I mean, we got a real challenge on defense. Now, we played very well until the fourth quarter last week, but you know, the Texans have, you know, a three-headed monster. Now, they got their butts chilled in Baltimore. I mean, they just couldn't stop. They couldn't stop the quarterback, and then they got behind, and they got the quarterback sacked. But you know, they've got a good running game. You know, now the running game is a little bit distorted, but they have, I think, 2 good runners. I really do, in Hyde and Duke Johnson, and they run that zone offense, and I think those guys are good. You can't let that get going, and we did let it get going finally in the fourth quarter, but they're 5th in the league. Now, remember, that's supplemented, you know, by the eel at quarterback. That guy is hard to bring down. You tackle him, it's like grabbing a Neil. He's right through you. You know, they're extremely good in the red zone, although we had the key to winning last time was we had 3 red zone stops. But they're 5th in rushing. And, again, you got to include the quarterback stuff. So, I mean, I just think, you know, a thumbnail sketch, you know, you've got number one, you've got to stop the basic running game, which I think we will. That doesn't bother me, but I think we will. But that's Hyde and Hyde and Duke Johnson. But I think just with that, we've got to make sure that we protect the edges on both the designed runs and the ad-lib runs by Watson. I mean, Watson, you know, this kid is just amazing. I mean, this kid has accounted for 75 touchdown passes over his brief career, 12 rushing, 63 passing. He's got a lifetime passer rating of 103.1 at 67%, 1,000+ yards rushing and 8,500 yards passing. I mean, this guy's a real special guy, and I think you have to be really alert on defense design-wise for a situational ball with him. Now, they're not going to run him every down, but when you've got games on the line, 4th and 1, 3rd and 2, when they get in that low red zone, you're going to see it. And you got to be able to do that, and you want to keep him in the well. His 2 interceptions against us were in the well. His sacks come when people keep him in the well, because he'll hold on to the ball. He is a guy with their long, they're like we used to be, a lot of play action deep on first down, and he'll hold it. And what Baltimore did was they rushed him with great discipline. They kept the edges on him, but they kept them tight. He couldn't escape out there. When he started to run late, they would come off their blocks and get him. He is trouble if you let him on the edge. You let that guy on the edge all day. You don't think about that. You don't have a good rush plan. He can get you. Just like we had him stopped all day, and then they can score in a hurry. And then you have one of the great receivers. I think he's Hall of Fame bound. He's got Hall of Fame hands and body control. This is a guy with 603 catches, 8,000 yard, 51 TV in Hopkins. And so, the 3 things you got to do is stop the run. I think you got to keep Hopkins you got to keep Watson in the well, and you have to situational plan for Hopkins, which we did a great job. We bracketed him in the red zone last time, and that was why we got the 3 stops. We bracketed him on key third downs. And then we were very alert to him when they get in spread. They're predictable in a sense if you're calling the defenses. Matt's calling the defenses. The way I look at them on first down, 1st and 10 or 2nd and 6 or less, which are kind of the same down in the NFL, they're going to play Clemson football. They're a college football team on first down. They'll run the zones, the zone reads. They'll run a little bit of option. He loves to run the play action and take the shots. All those things that, like I said, on first down are Clemson. Very much collegiate offense, utilizing him, and then bootleg passes. All the stuff where his legs can be a factor, and he factors into the running game. If you get him behind an account, if it goes 2nd and long, they go right from Clemson to Bill Walsh. They go right now to a West Coast. They get in spread, and it's what I call a get back down. If you get them 2nd and long, they're going to spread, and they're going to put Hopkins inside at 2 and 3 in the spread with Stills in there with him. And they're going to try to work your linebackers on slants and pivots and options just to get back to 3rd and short. And they really want Hopkins. So that's another situation, that 2nd and long, when they get in spread. I would have an audible. We had a critical one where Walker came over and doubled him in a critical situation in that spread, and we did it. And then on 3rd down, it's situational. If they're 3rd and 2 to 3 or 4, then you got to be ready. They're going to run all those man routes. You got to be ready for those rubs and picks. If it gets about 5 to 8, then it's going to be Hopkins. That's the place you want to double him, in that middle window. And then 3rd down, they're going to screen it or push it deep. So you kind of have a feel for what they're going to do, but you got to execute against a guy that can really put the numbers up.
Hey, really quick, and this is with Rick Venturi on the Andy Moore Automotive Group Hotline. I want to leave you with this and get your thoughts. I saw this earlier today. Deion Kane with the Steelers off the Colts practice squad says they need playmakers. I am definitely that guy. This is me paraphrasing, not an exact quote. Can he be that guy that he wasn't here in Pittsburgh?
Well, it's hard to say. I'm really disappointed. I think he came in. I thought he had a really good training camp after missing that whole year. He had a great training camp a week ago. I had tremendous hopes for him. I thought he was a guy that was going to be able to really stretch the field, would come on, would learn how to play. Obviously, there's some immaturity with him. He wasn't able to progress like they wanted. But, coaches have accountability, too. When you have talent like that, just like I gave Rathmann all the credit in the world, well, you need to bring that talent along. I mean, they always told me when I first came in the league, anybody can coach a front row guy. What the great position coaches can do is take that guy who's talented but has a liability, either work habits or mentally or something, and get that guy to go, because it's the talented guy in the end who is going to be really successful. He didn't produce to the level they wanted. He wasn't reliable. He busted key routes in the Pittsburgh game, and I think that was the final curtain for them. But I worry about that whenever I'm kind of an Al Davis guy. Go back to his great drafting. There's no substitute for speed, and it's up to the coaching staff when they get something like that to get it out of them.
So Rick Venturi, always awesome, always educational, and a must-listen for an hour every Monday beginning at 4:30 right here on the Andy Moore Automotive Group Hotline. It's a short one. Are we going to do Friday too?
We are gonna do Friday. That's part of my deal. So we will follow up on Friday, and I'll talk to you Thursday. We'll be talking every damn day
this week, and that makes the day the best it can be. Thank you, brother.
All right, Don.
So Rick Venturi on the Andy Moore Automotive Group Hotline. Podcast that 1075thefan.com.